Hello, hello, all good people of the whiskey world. How the hell are you today? Hope your drams have not been as rough as a badger's bum since you last listened, and they've been smoother than my co-host's diamond chat. As always, I'm joined by Nicholas Polacki, who some say can create whiskey from water just by looking at it. Hello, Nicholas. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, Mitch. And yourself?
Can't complain, mate. Can't complain.
These introductions are getting better.
You like
every
that?
time. Yeah,
I mean, I didn't actually slag you off there for a change. So I'll work that into the next one. The next one's going to be a monster slagging. Don't worry about that, pal.
Can't wait. I'm excited about our guest today, Mitch, because there's a common theme right now just with all the guests that we're having on, I think, or the guests that we're lining up particularly, because we're just choosing people we really, really like, which I think's nice because every time we bring on someone, like we get excited about it. But in this particular instance, it is the wonderful Kelsey McKechnie, who is Master of Malt and Malt Master at the Balvenie'S single malt, and a whiskey that both you and I have quite a bit of experience drinking as well as working with.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm so, Kelsey, welcome to the show, by the way. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hello. I wasn't wanting to speak there. I was just enjoying the show.
That's going to make it real awkward as we keep going through it if you don't participate, just to be clear.
I don't know. We just keep talking about her and just leave her on hold there. That'd be hilarious.
Sounds good.
But no, Kelsey, I'm so happy to have you on the show eventually, because this has been a kind of work in progress here. I think it's been about 3, maybe 4 months we've been chatting about getting you on and going backwards and forwards. So it's great to have you on. And I'm so happy to have you on for 2 reasons. Firstly, you and I go back a long way with the William Grant and Sons. And it's amazing to see your journey and how you've now become the master blender for Balvenie, which is unbelievable. And we're going to get onto that in just a second. And it also means that because you're on the show, it means there's going to be less chat from Nicholas, which is always a bonus.
Well, I'm glad I can help.
To be fair, Kelsey, my first question is this: were you not coming on the show specifically because Daz was here prior and now I'm the new co-host? You're like, I'm in.
I mean, I'm not going to say it was the entire reason, but yeah, it did play a factor.
There we go. Thought so.
Well, Kelsey, I think we should get straight into this. I mean, let's chat about your amazing new position as Malt Master at Balvenie. I mean, unbelievably big shoes to fill here. We're talking about David Stewart MBE, and I know there was this recent thing that happened down in, I think it was London last year, where it was kind of twofold, right? Because I mean, I'll let you talk about this, but there was the release of the 60-year-old. It was David Stewart's 60th work anniversary, and it was I suppose was it the official handover of the range?
Yeah, it really was. So yeah, the event that we had in London, which was a fantastic event, and as you say, marked David's 60 years at William Grant and Sons, which is absolutely incredible. If I were to do the same, I would need to give up work when I'm 81. So it's clear that I'm not going to do 60 years. But yeah, on that night, so we marked David's 60 years. We launched the 60-year-old liquid, and I was officially announced as Malt Master. So what an amazing event!
Yeah, how did that feel afterwards?
It's funny. I think it's the kind of thing as well. At the time, everything's happening so fast, so you probably don't take in everything that's going on. And you'll both know what it's like working for William Grant's. We are just, I don't want to say humble, but everyone's so quiet and happy to get on with their day to day. So I think it's really good to take those sorts of moments where we actually just take in everything that's happened. And for us, we see David all the time, on and off, and nipping in at the office if we see him at the site, whatever he's doing. And actually to take some time and say, you've dedicated 6 decades of your life to William Grant Sons Spirits and specifically Balvenie. We absolutely should mark it with a dinner at least. So it was amazing.
And that, I think that word humble is the ideal word to describe David Stewart. So I mean, I can imagine at the dinner, everybody being the center of attention is not something he particularly enjoys. I think that he always strikes me, it's hysterical. You'd be like 60 years dedicated, and he'd be like, yep, that was it was nice, 60 years, yep, so that was fun. He's just so like his simplified enjoyment in the role that he's had for such a long period of time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he knows how to do it in all these years as well. So he's definitely so fantastic at talking about the products. He's happy to, let everyone into the history of all of our brands and how products were formed. So yeah, he's fantastic at all that sort of thing. And people were showering him with compliments, and he's just saying, yeah, I almost fell into this job. They didn't have anyone else to do it when Hamish had left. And so yeah, I started doing it, and I did pretty well. And you're like, well, after 60 years, yeah, you did exceptionally well.
I always thought with William Grant & Sons, they always talked about being a family company. Like, we're all big family. And I used to think, maybe it was just me with my family growing up in Scotland, but God, I don't want to be part of a family. Most families are dysfunctional. Like, I want to be a really well-oiled machine. But the funny thing is about the business is it is a very well-oiled machine, but the relationships that are cultivated within William Grant & Sons can be lifelong, as Mitch and I can attest to. So I think that's pretty cool that, you're being handed the reins from somebody that spent 60 years building one of the most iconic single malt whiskey brands. No pressure.
No pressure at all. Is it worrying that doesn't worry me?
No, I think it's reassuring for us as the drinkers of Balvenie. Is reassuring that it doesn't worry you.
I think that's great that it doesn't, because I mean, you're not just coming into this like, oh, I'm just taking over from David. Let's chat about your background a little bit. How long have you been sort of studying, if you like, under David now?
So I've been at William Grant & Sons for 9 years, and when I had joined, I worked in our lab in Girvan. So basically I did a lot of the analysis on how we make the grain whiskey, malt whiskey, how we make gin, a lot to do with different flavour profiles. I moved around our sites, so moved up to Dufftown for a little while, and then I moved into Whisky Salts for a short period of time. But I had first met David in 2015. So it has been a long time in the making. It's funny because I always joke about this, how long an apprenticeship is, but everyone's eager to sort of like get those years down. So it's been good. Officially, we had announced that I was David's apprentice in 2018, because at that age I was under 25. So I almost had like a silent year in 2000, or silent year, should I say, leading up to that point, because the company just doesn't have anyone in an outward facing role that isn't over 25, basically advertising alcohol. So yeah, it's been really good actually having those couple of years to say, I don't know, David, Brian, what's the answer?
That's funny.
Was it like Jedi training where you like blindfolded with David Stewart throwing like flavor profiles at you and you had to bat them off with a lightsaber, or what was the training like?
Yeah, more or less. So you're like over a swimming pool, and then you're blindfolded, and if you don't guess which Balvenie product it is, you get pushed in the pool. So that's more or less how it goes. Sometimes it's a fire pit, shark-infested waters, who knows?
The cooling pond at Balvenie, right? That's what they use.
Exactly.
When did you first realise that you could nose whiskey and you're really good at it?
We don't say that we're really good at it, but that when I had first realised that I enjoyed doing it, and that I was able to pick up the aromas and be able to, isolate them. Probably when I had first started working at Girvan, you'll know this, Mitch, I'm naturally a bit nosy. So when I was working on all of the new make analysis in the spirit, all of our sites have little nosing labs. It's a really good thing. When they get the new make spirits, that clear spirit, as soon as it runs off the still, they do sensory on it. Then our blended team, so myself, Brian Kinsman, day in, day out, we do all of the analysis as well. And we've got a couple other people in our team, which is great. And then we meet at the end of the month, and we basically act like the customer to everything the site's produced, and then we chat about the flavours that they've made and are we on track, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, everyone was part of the nosing panel, and I was like, well, if I'm analysing the spirit and, really quantifying how much of X amount of flavours, so higher alcohols and esters and things that we're analysing in spirit, I want to be able to use my palate to pick up those same flavours. And so I started doing it. I worked under Leslie Gracie, who is famed as the creator of Hendrick's for quite a while. And I obviously asked Leslie too many questions because she'd shunned me off to Tullamore quite quickly after that. And then I worked in Tullamore. So I was so lucky because I got to move around our sites and just nosing and tasting different spirits. And yeah, I don't know, no one picked me up and nosing things incorrectly. So I think it just evolved from there.
That's awesome. What was your interview process like for William Grant & Sons? Because Jamie Milne just texted Mitch and I to remind me of my interview process for William Grant & Sons, where apparently I started to take a blowtorch to St. Pete in the office during my interview and almost set off the sprinkler system for the entire building. Did you have anything quite as tragically bad as that go on?
You know, I did, and I joined so many moons before this was even on my radar as being a job. So my interview story is far too boring for this podcast.
Have you heard Mitch talk? I wouldn't put anything far too boring for this podcast, to be fair.
Oh, nice. Hey, my interview process, I can't even remember. It was that long ago. Oh no, I do remember. I went over to New York and Andy Weir was there. And it was funny because I actually put up a slide of, I'd done like a whole PowerPoint presentation because you had to do, it was convince people how to come over to Scotland. And I actually put a slide of Braveheart up there, which was ironic because Andy Weir was actually in Braveheart. So I got a little bit of a giggle. No, very cool. Well, listen, I want to chat about what we're all drinking here because I'm obviously drinking a little bit of Balvenie. Nicholas has got, I can see, I mean, look at his whiskey selection there, Kelsey. Sorry, listeners, you can't see it, but probably about a quarter of the screen is taken up with Balvenie's there. You're in the office, so I know, Kelsey, you might not be able to pour yourself a wee dram. It might be frowned upon. But this is the joys about me and Nicholas being our own bosses now. We can just, pour ourselves our own dram. I've poured out something in your kind of honor. So this is the Sweet Toast of American Oak, which I know was one of, am I correct in saying this was one of your first babies with Balvenie?
Yeah, definitely. It was the first official one, I feel like, but we can definitely chat about it. I don't mention it often, but we get to do the blending across all our brands. So there's a few more, obviously, that I've felt just as close to, but this is the first official one.
Very cool. So chat me through the whole process with this, because I know you worked a lot with Kelvin Cooperage over there, went over to Kentucky. I think you and Gemma went over there, Gemma Patterson, right?
We did. And Gemma tried to kill me when we were over there. Have you ever been in a car with Gemma driving?
Oh, I want to hear this story. Let's hear this story.
Do you know, she was like veering in, I don't want to paint her in a bad light, but she was scooting about the lanes. And then someone had crept up on us and we ended up getting into a little bit of a dink with them, but we were all good. To be honest, I think she was more horrified than anyone, but yeah, it was all fine.
Is she a road rager? Is that what we're hearing? Is that what was coming out the woodwork?
She's the complete opposite. She's so nice and bubbly.
It's because she's from Lewis, there's not a lot of traffic in Lewis, so
no,
90 miles an hour with her middle finger waving out the window.
Gemma, for the record, you're a fantastic driver.
I've been in the car with her a few times. She's all right. So let's chat about this though. I mean, I think this was one of the first in the stories range to come out, which is now sees, I think there's 7 or 8 different Balvenie stories. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, we're definitely nearly in double digits now, so it's been amazing. So yeah, you're right, the 12-year-old toasted was one of the first in the series. It's one of the first that I had worked on, so we are always looking at different innovations. We pride ourselves on where we can, recreating different flavors, and there's a lot that you can do in new make. We talk about that a lot in terms of how you actually make the spirit and making different flavor profiles. But in mature spirit, we were saying, what else could we do that, would not change the flavour of Balvenie, but we can accentuate a lot of those different characters that we get. So yeah, we absolutely love Virgin American Oak Cask. They're amazing, never held spirit before, so they're bursting with flavour, ready to give off to another spirit. And so basically we'd given them 2 toasts, one in Kelvin Cooperage, sent them over here. Our coopers have given them a second toast, and then we filled them with 12-year-old Balvenie spirit and almost just let the magic happen. Typically when we do innovations, we'll sample them within the first 4 or 5 weeks. We'll sample the finishing cask, we get them back to our blending room, and we'll have a nose. And as soon as we had sampled these ones, we could tell straight away there's a big uplift in colour. The nose is absolutely fantastic. I always say to everyone, if you've tried a 12-year-old Balvenie single barrel, it's like the single barrel on steroids. It's just super intense, accentuates all the vanilla, those toffee, all that honey character that Balvenie has to offer. It's absolutely beautiful, and it has all the best parts for me of bourbon, what bourbon can offer, but it speaks true to Balvenie's DNA and that lovely house style that we've got. So one of my favourites, I have to say.
It's definitely that turbocharge of the new oak comes through for sure, with the American wood. Nicholas, what you got in your glass out of one of your 20 million Balvenies that you got in the background there?
I have always. Well, it's fun. So true story. Mitch can attest. You know yourself. You work for a whiskey company. You get some perks, and one of the perks that I thought was really good with William Ganson's is they give you a little allowance every year to go out and buy any of the brands that they make. Which you can go and buy some, say like Jerry. You could go and buy some Hendrix. You could go and buy Milagro, whatever it was that they were selling in the United States at the time. And I didn't. I bought one bottle. I bought one bottle of something that I probably wouldn't have spent. So I'd spend all my allowance on one thing, all my eggs in one basket, but I'd treat myself to a really nice whiskey. So I actually have some single cask 1978. I've got some 73. I've got the original Balvenie Ton 1401 batch number 1, which was only available at the distillery. So I've got one bottle of that front and center here. And I've also got quite a few of the batch number 3s, which Mitch, you'll know that myself and Andy Weir got to go back and work with David Stewart, and we got to kind of hand crank that 130-year-old. It was 95 years old at the time, so it was probably about 110 years old now, 100 whatever years old now, and crank and hand pump the casks into the marrying tun. But right now, as a little toast to you, Kelsey, I poured a Balvenie 30 because I thought you might not get 60 years in, but I hope you get 30. So
listen, if I only last till 30 years, I've got you to thank. This is maybe an omen.
So on that note, so obviously, I mean, the one thing that I will say is, and I do know this, is that there's a lot of older aging stock for Balvenie's, which has been one of the niceties of being able to kind of sip and taste through, I'm sure, as the new Malt Master. What do you see coming down the line for some of those older profiles? Have you got anything that you'd love to do, or anything that they've given you a challenge to work on?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we've definitely got heaps of innovations. We always talk about this. So we'll buy any weird, wonderful cast that's going so that we can try it out at a younger end. So we have heaps of experiments that I really look forward to launching. Part of David's legacy for me has always been how innovative he's been. Cast finishing, pioneering it in the 80s, and obviously launching 12-year-old Doublewood in 93. So for us, it's really just about keeping that alive. So all that old stock, yeah, I mean, we've got so much of it earmarked for the future. And how amazing would it be if we could launch products older than a 60-year-old in the coming years?
Wow. And on that subject, Kelsey, let's chat about that current 60-year-old. What was the process for that? What was the type of cask? I'm assuming you were quite heavily involved in pulling all that together as well.
Yeah, and I mean, so lucky. Can you imagine working at a site where, in a lot of ways, all of the hard work's been done before you? I get the fantastic job of just going in, nosing and tasting them and saying, nah, leave that one. This is the one. So to be honest, it'd been earmarked for a couple of years. We absolutely loved it. It's a European oak hogshead, and we managed to get 71 bottles out of it as well. So we at least wanted to make 60 for 60 years. And the flavour is incredible. We always put peat into our kiln, but many moons ago we would have put more peat in, so it had a little bit more of that peated accent to it. It's certainly not what we would classify as peated spirit, but just in the way that we fired the kiln, it does have a little bit of more smoke in the nose, but it's beautiful. It's got damp bracken on the nose, that rich toffee note that we always talk about in Balvenie, and that a lot of those caramelized flavors coming through. Spending 60 years in oak, that ABV's just dropped down naturally in its own, and it's just absolutely stunning. So I truly mean it when I say I've had the easiest job, and how rich for me that I get to go in and sample all these casks. And yeah, as I say, yay and nay them.
So you got 11 extra bottles out of that cask. So I can't wait for my sample bottle of that to show up, Kelsey. That's very kind of you to offer.
Mate, you didn't get yours. Kelsey sent mine last week. You didn't get it. Oh, sorry, Nicholas.
I know, and because we've got those extra 11, you're both talking about what you're drinking. I've got a cup of tea in my cat mug, but I just chopped a little bit of 60 in there. Why not?
Yes.
It's 9:30 in the morning here. Like, I have to say, this is the thing. Every time I call Mitch, it's the middle of the afternoon for him. To be fair, he's always 5 or 6 whiskeys in by the middle of the afternoon.
True story.
It's never his first dram, but he's making me start to drink now at 9. Like, oh, this is a wonderful breakfast dram. The old 30-year-old Balvenie.
Never do anything less than 30-year-old before 9 o'clock in the morning, you know.
Shameful.
It is shameful, isn't it? Like, this is a treat. Like, I was really excited for you to come on, Kelsey. So I did want to. This is one of the few times that I actually have poured myself a dram at 9:30 in the morning and genuinely enjoyed drinking it.
No, good. Honestly, it's amazing. I'm so glad that everyone does enjoy Balvenie as much as they do, because I mean, seriously, what a fantastic company. And like I say, everyone at the site works their socks off to make sure that new make spirit's absolutely perfect. So yeah,
Yep.
so many respects. I've got the easy job. So someone drinking a 30-year-old at 9, half 9 in the morning, that's what should be done.
And Kelsey, let's chat about your role now. So now you've got free reign. David's not coming over looking over your shoulder every 2 seconds. What does your job look like? I mean, I'm assuming there's a lot of sampling going on, but I know there's going to be a lot of international travel, which you've been doing already. So how does this year look for you as we move into 2023?
So it's definitely going to be a busy year. We're heading out to Asia in April, so we're stopping in Taipei for a little bit and then heading over to Singapore. So that's just one of the trips that we've got planned. So we're doing a couple of 60-year-old events. And so it's amazing. I mean, to be honest, it's a good one.
And that's
just
drinking
chatting
whiskey, not making events for people over the age of 60, right? Correct.
And it could be both, but yes, it's for our launch event. But yeah, to be honest, super, super busy year. And like I say, it's a great one chatting about actually how David and I's relationship's been working over the past couple of years. Because when I always joke and say, is it, strange that I don't feel worried or stressed about him not being around? David is, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, he's actually just turned 78. So of course, David hasn't had a hand in the day-to-day in the same way that he would have 30, 40 years ago. So a lot of the day-to-day stuff we've just been working through. And we always say this, we are so lucky to have him on hand. So when we chat about casks from the 70s and the 80s, and I'm talking about cask for talking say 1121, he'll say, is that the sister cask that we brought in batch? And his memory is just so switched on. It's amazing.
awesome.
He knows so much just about how we've made the juice for so long. So yeah, I think as far as the day-to-day, actually with the big announcement, I'm really lucky that bizarrely not a lot has changed, but that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like David Stewart's probably a little bit of not a workaholic, but Balvenie's been his baby for so long. He probably finds it hard to give it up. I mean, you got so many examples of that within William Grant and Sons. There's people like Ian Miller, ex-distillery manager, global ambassador, said he was going to retire, hasn't really retired. Dennis McBain, still kicking about the distillery all the time. Ian McDonald as well, ex-Cooper.
Make him sound like a hobo just hanging out the back gates there. He's not just kicking about the distillery. He's like an active member of the community, I think is what you meant to say.
Yeah, well, yeah. Everyone knows Dennis, knows what I'm talking about. But I wanted to bring Dennis in because I love that story. And Kelsey, maybe you can chat about it a little bit more. The one that was a kind of tip of the hat to Dennis McBain with the copper dog.
So basically in 2018, when it was announced that I was going to be David's apprentice, Dennis had very kindly gifted me a copper dog. So I'm sure listeners of this podcast know what a copper dog is, but if not, it's basically a copper tube on a chain. So it's called the dog, and the chain acts as like taking the dog, that's its lead, taking it a walk. And so moons ago, we used to take out the bung out of a cask, we would drop the copper tube in and then sample it from there. So when I was announced as apprentice malt master, Dennis had made one and David and him had gifted me it. And basically the bottom was a penny from 1962 and the spirit inside was from the year that I was born. And so it was a beautiful gift. It was really, really nice. That's one thing I absolutely love about whiskey. It's so nostalgic. And actually, when we talk about all these old casks as well, apart from the fact the flavour is amazing, thinking about the amount of people before you that have actually worked on that spirit and touched the casks, yeah, I'm not worthy.
Do you think they'll ever do a bottling for Mitch called the Tube? Because plenty of people call him that. So I wonder if maybe Balvenie would think or consider about doing something along those lines.
We had one for Mitch, but it wasn't as PG as that.
Well, as you know, this isn't a PG show, so it's fine to go ahead and say it. Talking about something a little bit more serious here, Kelsey. I mean, you're young, you're female, you're in charge of this massive brand. How does that go down within the whiskey industry when people realize you're the malt master? I mean, I'm assuming there must be not pushback from some people, but almost shock because, you've got to this position at such a young age. There must be some kind of funny reactions sometimes.
Do you know, and there probably is. And I think it's good to shock people. We love a bit of change. And in whiskey, nothing happens overnight. So there's very little change that happens. And do you know, I think there's probably two parts to it. Being a bit younger as well, actually was sort of similar ages to David when he had taken on this sort of role, but I've been in the whiskey stocks team for a long time, so I've been really lucky and had a hand in. So I think if it's sort of an age thing that people are surprised by, it's you know, your sensory palate and your skills always, I would like to think, speak for themselves, and that's how people get into these sorts of roles. But around just what sort of gender people have and the roles that they're doing, I always think it's a really great one to chat about, because actually internally, since I've worked at wine grants, I've had more female leaders than I've had male. And so I always think it's an outward facing misconception in terms of whiskey drinkers often think that, because there's definitely more male whiskey drinkers than there are female. But again, you know, that's sort of turning on its head a little bit. So yeah, I think over the years I've been blending Balvenie spirit. Touch wood, we've not had any complaints. So yeah, I've not had any pushback. And I'm so lucky as well, working for such an amazing brand that I'm almost, I feel like, hidden from a lot of that. So I dare say it does happen, but I don't feel it at all. And if people are skeptical, I welcome them to buy a bottle and try it for themselves.
I think that's the right way. You know, let the liquid do the speaking for you. But on that note, I actually don't know how old you are, Kelsey, and I know it's rude to ask a woman how old she is. So instead, I'm just going to ask how much you weigh.
And I was going to say, do you know, it is rude to ask, so thank you. Yep.
No
Right,
answer
Kelsey.
on either question. Fine, there we go.
We're getting to the end of this, and it's been a pleasure. We could do this for hours, I'm sure, but I know you're busy. You got to go and shoot off and blend up some more Balvenie. But we're going to do a quick fire round for you, not necessarily about whiskey, just some random questions for you coming up here. So, best Balvenie you've ever tried?
Best Balvenie that I could try again. Portwood, love it.
Over 21, absolute killer. What would your ideal holiday vacation be?
It's going to be Bali in July.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
If you could get any type of animal to keep as a pet, what would it be?
Have you seen my mug? It's a cat.
Cat person. Love it.
I'm
the
crazy
your
cat
face there
person.
for a minute. I'm like, oh.
Top movie you've watched?
Top movie that I've watched.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know, I am a loser. I was right the first time. I don't watch too many movies, but right now I'm rewatching Suits.
There you go.
Nice.
I love a bit of Suits. Does anyone watch it?
I think I watched like the first few seasons of it, and then it was just gets a bit repetitive, doesn't it? It's kind of like there's only so much of this that I can take watching this kid squeeze his way illegally through the legal system.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think it's a good nod to A Simple Mind then, because I'm like same style of episode every time, and I'm like a clap and seal at home, so it's great.
Clap and seal. Right, so you walk into a bar and they have no Balvenie behind the bar. After you pick your jaw up off the floor in disbelievement of that, what whiskey do you order? Scotch or international? What do you go for?
Oh, definitely keeping one of our home brands. I'm going to say a massive throwback to my early days, Glenfiddich Fire and Cane. You'll know well, Mitch.
Good choice.
Yeah,
If
I love
you didn't work in the whiskey industry and you could do any job anywhere, what would it be?
Oh, any job anywhere, I think. Do you know, because I'm not a massive fan of flying, and I always say I'd be far more comfortable if I was actually allowed in the cockpit. I would like to be a pilot, because I feel like I would love it if I was in charge of the plane.
Oof, couldn't pay me to do that. I'm actually, the older I'm getting, the more I'm getting more terrified of flying. I used to do 180,000 air miles a year, and now I don't want to get in an airplane. I'm even like I'm a shaky pedestrian at best now.
Do you know, see if you crack the secret to going on a plane and just feeling at ease, let me know.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're lying, Nicholas. You're always a bad flyer. I remember we used to fly together all the time. You used to hold my hand during takeoff. What are you talking about?
Mostly. Honestly, I'll tell you this. This is a funny story. So I was actually in the car with my wife, and my son was in the back seat, and he's 7 years old. But this is the loveliest thing I've ever heard him say. I just leaned over just to hold my wife Carrie's hand, and he leaned over, and my son went, "Why are you holding hands? Is it for safety?" But the way I drive, probably.
Awesome.
What's the next Balvenie that's coming out? I'm joking. I know you can answer that.
Oh.
I know you can answer that. Well, if you want to.
I was about to say, but because you've said you can't answer that. Yeah, I
No,
mean, to be
you
honest,
can.
let's be honest. We've launched a 6-year-old Balvenie only 4 months ago. I'm riding off the coattails of that for a long time.
Yeah,
Fair
quite
play.
right. Quite right.
But
What do you get up to when you're not making whiskey?
Love hanging out with family. How cheesy. Going out, doing a fair bit of walking, and then when the better weather comes in, enjoy a bit of wakeboarding.
Oh, there you go. Mitch likes a bit of that
Badly.
as well.
Nice.
Absolutely rock star. This was fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed meeting you, Kelsey, because actually I hadn't met you prior to you coming on the show. So really nice for you to join us. Thanks for giving us your time today. As always, it's been a pleasure.
No, it's been great actually catching up. And Mitch, I think it's been the longest time since we've properly seen each other. So lovely to see you both and to meet you, Nicholas, as you say.
Yeah, you too, Kelsey. Take care. Great to see you.